Welcome back, it's me, Lou. Okay, so for today's video, we're gonna do a little bit of a toy haul. I've mentioned in previous videos that I'm kind of on the hunt for like some older carded action figures. And one thing I do want a very small collection of, at the very least, maybe just having a handful of figures, is that I wanted some carded McFarlane Walking Dead action figures. I used to have maybe like two or three back in the day. I didn't have a whole lot. I just had a couple of the characters I really liked. And at some point in time, I kind of sold like some of my mints on card McFarlane collection. It was a combination of some like Halo figs, some Walking Dead, and a couple of other things. And ever since then, especially now that the show is coming to an end, I'm kind of nostalgic for maybe like the first 3 or 4 seasons of the show. That's when I was really on board. A couple of years back, I don't know, I kind of just lost interest. I kind of felt the story was kind of dragging and it was the same thing over and over again. But I do have very fond memories of when the show first started. So at the very least, I just wanted maybe a handful of figs. So over the recent weeks, this is what I've acquired. On the left, we have Daryl. I believe this is, I'm not sure what series this is. This is this is a flashback figure. But I don't know, this might be Series 5, then, I take it. Because they're previewing Series 6 over here. Unless the flashback figures were kind of its own thing. This looks great. The likeness to Norman Reedus is alright. I don't think it's the best, but I don't mind. I love all the accessories it comes with. Like, everything looks so, like, hyper-realistic. Like the crossbow, the knife. Even if for a figure at this scale, you're looking at a figure that's maybe like 4.5 to maybe 5 inches. The detail on it is amazing. Like the sculpting and the clothing, it's all top notch. It was a very confusing period for me, like when it came to McFarlane toys, because around this time period, they were experimenting. I'm not sure if they was even experimenting. They were just doing smaller action figures. They had like 7-inch Walking Dead figures, but those are more like a little bit on the statue kind of side. Like the articulation is very limited. But the highly articulated figures were these smaller ones. And they were also dabbling with Halo at this small action figure scale. And I always felt kind of conflicted because I love the detail on these figures, but I just wish that they were a little bit larger. So yeah, this is great. I love Daryl. He's like one of the mainstays of the show. Next we have good old Rick Grimes. This one here was an exclusive. I'm not sure exclusive to where. So I don't know if this was a store exclusive or con exclusive. So yeah, we have Rick Grimes here. He's in his officer's uniform. Looks cool. He comes with a baseball bat, walkie-talkie, his revolver, and a pistol. Now, looking at this figure, one thing is that it almost looks like in terms of the paint job, it looks like it's a little bit overdone. Like his uniform looks like it has too much of a wash to the point where it's like excessively dirty. And I think when he wore this uniform, it wasn't, this was pre-apocalypse. I don't think he ever wore the uniform post-apocalypse. So the sculpting's well done. It's kind of hard to see with the brim of the hat. And this is an exclusive, but they have Terminus at the top. For me, I think that was like the peak of some of the early seasons, the whole Terminus storyline. And some of the figures in this... Oh, so this was Series 7. Okay, so some of the figures included the Mudwalker, Gareth, Michion, Rick, Carl, and Herschel. And this came out back in 2015. So you're looking at something that's about 7 years old. Yeah, so this is really during the height of The Walking Dead's popularity. I remember it was one of those shows that was like a must-watch. You had to watch it every Sunday night. But it's like I said, I think the show kind of like I don't want to say it overstayed its welcome, but after a while, the stories just kind of seemed to be dragging, or they kept on repeating the same themes over and over again. But I'm so fond of like the early seasons of the show. And over here we have Michion. She looks great. Now, for me, the conflicting thing is with Michion. Excuse me. The conflicting thing with Michion is I'm not sure like if I need her pet zombies. Like when she's first introduced in the TV show, she has the two walkers with her, and I can't remember the continuity, the TV continuity versus the comic book continuity. But I want to say I think one of her pet walkers might have been her fiance. I think that's right. But for now, I'm just happy to have a Michion in my collection. Again, excellent sculpting and detail. You know, these figures, it's kind of weird because back when they were doing the Walking Dead figures, McFarlane, their likeness in terms of the actors was like spot on. But if you look at some of the figures they're doing for DC Multiverse, the likeness of the actors is just horrible. Like the Peacemaker unmasked figure looks nothing like John Cena. You know, the Justice League, Aquaman, the actor Jason Momoa, the figure looks nothing like him. But when they did The Walking Dead, man, the likeness was so spot on. And this one's also Series 7. And over here we have the Governor. Now this was a character I always hoped they would have revisited in the show, like maybe through a flashback or something. Big fan of the Governor storyline in the comic books. I used to be a big fan of the comic books. I'm like a day one fan. I actually still have the first issue of The Walking Dead, first print in my collection. I even met Robert Kirkman years ago. Really fun and great guy. We met him in Las Vegas, and it's crazy because he was in Las Vegas, and there's so much to do in Las Vegas. But all he wanted to do was go to the movies and watch the new Resident Evil at the time. Yeah, so the Governor, one of my favorite characters from the comic and the TV show. Great villain. Again, excellent sculpting. The likeness of the actors, pretty decent. The paint application is great. Yeah, it's just, for me, it's kind of like a sore spot. I really wish these figures were larger in scale. Like, I know they made 7-inch figures, but those are a little bit more on the statue kind of side. And here's some other figures. This was Series 4. Carl, Andrea, Riot Gear Zombie. Yeah, so great figs. And I do have one more. Let me grab it. Alright, this is the one I really wanted. I needed a Negan figure. And I really wanted one of actor Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So this is Negan and Glenn. And it's a great 2-pack. It recreates that horrific scene where Glenn bites the dust. And I remember that was such a polarizing moment, because I remember the next day, like on social media, on the internet, that's like one of those moments where there were so many fans that were upset about what happened. And, you know, some of them said they were going to swear off the show. But for me, it was like counting down to that moment. You know, I was reading the comic books, and the comic books were so far ahead of the TV show that if you're a fan of the comic books, you knew what was going to happen to Glenn at some point in the show, and you're just kind of just waiting for it. And I think for me, when that moment finally happened, I think it really delivered. And I remember when I was talking to Robert Kirkman way back when, I was kind of asking him about the when Glenn was killed off in the comic books. There was kind of like a scene where Rick's talking about, you know, he's like, I think it's kind of like a small quiet scene where Rick's either talking to like himself, or he's talking to, like, you know, the spirit of Glenn, saying how much he was going to miss him. And the dialogue felt kind of weird, because it almost felt like it was an inner monologue that was coming from Robert Kirkman. And I was asking him about that. You know, I'm like, you know, when you wrote that one scene where Rick's kind of saying goodbye to Glenn, it almost sounded like that was you saying goodbye to the character. And we had a nice conversation about that. So yeah, this is a great set. Negan and Glenn 2-pack. The box is excessively large. These are tiny figures, but the box is gigantic. It's a waste of space. They can easily cut down the size of this box to like maybe a third of its size and still fit both figures. But it's eye-catching. This is something that if you were like at maybe like an FYE or like a Hot Topic and you saw it, you'd be like, I gotta get that. So this is what we're coming back to. Like I was talking about, they made 5-inch figures, which, you know, these figures are. But McFarlane also dabbled into 7-inch figures. But these were more so like statues. And I do remember that they were getting a lot of backlash from the fan community because, you know, fans really wanted to see the larger figures, but with more articulation. And I think McFarlane started to address that when they started working more on the video game properties. You know, I remember a few years back I bought some of the McFarlane Call of Duty figures, and I was just amazed because that was almost like a precursor to what we're getting now with the DC Multiverse. You know, the figures were super, super detailed. Like these are very hyper realistic, but they had all of the articulation. So yeah, as much as I love these smaller figures, it's kind of like bittersweet. It's nice to have them, but at the same time, I would have wished that they were larger scale and were still this articulated. You know, these are great, but at the same time, it's like you're getting small statues, which is nice. I can understand it. You know, there is a market for that. You know, there's people that just want nice display pieces versus like a toy. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much my Walking Dead collection for now. I don't plan on getting any more mint on card Walking Dead figs. Unless I see a couple of certain characters. Like, I wouldn't mind having, like, Meryl or Carl. I'd like to add those figures to my collection, but for now, this is kind of much it. I think with the exception of the 2-pack here, all these other figures are bought at reasonable prices. Some of them were bought for like as low as like $9. I think the most expensive one might have been Daryl. I might have paid 20 bucks for this guy, and possibly maybe 25 for Rick. Michion's very common. I've seen her priced anywhere from like $9 to like 15. The Governor, likewise. You know, I think I bought this guy for maybe 8 bucks. So if you're in the hunt for like older Walking Dead figures, especially since the show is coming to an end, you know, just shop around. You know, I think with the exception of some of the later sets, especially anything that has Negan in it, everything should be reasonably priced. Alright, so that wraps that up. Once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber viewer, thank you so much for your continued likes, comments, and support. I greatly appreciate it. So, until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I will talk to you later.